Hey, how's it going? Jakka-B here, and welcome back to my tutorial series. So I've had a few people over the course of the last year or so since I started my tutorial series on production asking me about mastering and mixdowns and stuff like that. So I thought this tutorial would be a good opportunity to jump into the real basics of mastering. There's like probably hundreds if not thousands of different ways you can master a track, but what I want to cover off is kind of like the absolute basics for people that don't really know what mastering is at all. I want to just kind of like get together a basic effects chain to help you guys bring your track up, to the kind of mastering standards, so it's a little bit louder, maybe a little bit brighter, a little bit wider. Before I jump into the project, the first thing for me and the most important thing about mastering is actually having a really, really good mix down. So my advice is to people before you kind of try and crack mastering is to crack your mix downs. You know, a really, really clean mix down will automatically get you a louder master. That's just a fact. So, keep working away at your mix downs all the time. Obviously, like having some mastering skills is important. Another important thing as well is I don't try, unless I'm playing a track, unless I finish the track that day to play in a club that night, I don't mix down and master on the same day. So I'll finish a tune, I'll leave it like a couple of days, and then I'll come back and master it with fresh ears. I always find I get better results, but that's not always possible. So anyway, yeah, that's the lowdown on mastering so far. Let's jump into Ableton and get cracking.
Okay, so we are inside Ableton. I'm sorry, guys, if you are on FL Studio and you've been following my tutorials, I've moved to Ableton, but I'm going to still jump in and do a few on FL here and there. On to mastering then. The track we're mastering is my Fat Bass Flip, which I've been playing in my sets. I've already mastered it, but this is just for the sake of this tutorial. I'm going to put it up as a free download soon, so keep an eye out for that. Okay, so I'm going to go with two different methods. The first one, I'm going to master the track using just the Ableton stock plugins, using like a kind of basic effects chain that I would maybe use. And then the second one is using paid plugins. Premium plugins, should I say. They're not necessarily better, but they're just ones that I like to use in my my effects chains when I'm mastering. Yeah, so I'm not by any means a mastering engineer or expert, but I do like to master my own tracks to play in clubs, and over time I've kind of gathered some knowledge on being able to master my own music. The first things I'm going to do is just go through three important plugins that I use regardless of what chain I've got, and they are MSED, which is a mid-side plugin, so you can solo stereo and the mono. The second one is Scope, which is a spectrum analyzer, and the third one is the LUFS meter, waves loudness meter, which measures in LUFS. This is really important because a lot of music now, when people master, they master based on the LUFS, which is loudness units, which is the perceived loudness, how loud your ears think the track is, as opposed to the actual, true peak loudness of the track. So at the moment, this track is hitting around. So it's hitting about 13 LUFS loudness units, and what we want to get it to ideally is kind of around 5 or 6. I don't want to push the tracks to the point where there's no dynamics just to get it to that point, but I think I should be able to. I certainly will be able to using these plugins. I'm not so sure about the Ableton ones, but we'll see. So starting off then with the EQ8, the three things I usually do when I'm doing EQ is look to do, if the track needs it, high boosts, low boosts, and then notches, which is like cutting out harsh frequencies. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is just look for those frequencies which aren't sounding particularly good. Like that. That just doesn't go. So bring that down, and I usually bring them down to about 3, roughly around 3, minus 3. Bring up a second one. So there's, because I'm bringing it up loads, it sounds like there's a lot of harsh frequencies, but I'm looking for the really high resonant ones that just give it a really horrible kind of tone when you boost it, like that. Bring that one also down as well. Ooh. Does feel like it needs a bit of high boost as well, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that just a little bit. And those frequencies are fine there. It's just the high end and those notches there. So next up is the utility feature, which is kind of basically what I use for stereo placement. I tend to put everything below 200 hertz in mono. If I bring up MSED, you'll be able to see better. I'm going to mute the mid so you'll just be able to hear the stereo. And you can hear when I move that up and down how much of the stereo is being cut out in the low end. I think that's about right there. You might not be able to hear it. It might not sound like it's having much of an effect, but actually by doing that, you are making the high end kind of come out a little bit more in the stereo field. And then I'm just going to boost that ever so slightly. There, so the overall track's slightly wider. Don't want to go OTT on it. I think that's fine. Okay, now on to the compressor. So there's I chucked in OTT as well because that's basically like the Ableton one, and it's free as well if you guys don't know. So yeah, let's start with that then. I put a low ratio on because a lot of stuff already would have been compressed during the mixing stage, so I don't need to smash the compressor. Pretty quick release time as well. About there, I think it's probably going to be right. And then a slightly longer attack time. And you'll be able to hear as I bring the threshold up, the compressor will start to bite. So that's having a slight effect on the track. Now we'll try OTT, see what that one sounds like. So yeah, it's really subtle. I don't want to smash the compression because obviously it's had it and it's going to have a limiter on it in a sec. So we've got those three on. I'm going to switch back to the glue and then we'll try the limiter just to finish off with the Ableton stock mastering. So yeah, that is basically how you can do a very, very quick master using the Ableton stock plugins to master. Now I'm going to go on to the paid for premium plugins and see what difference that makes. So again, same kind of chain. The only difference is I've got Oxford Inflator in there, which I'll show you guys in a sec. So same again with the EQ. It's the exact same place where the frequency was in the last one, obviously. But with the difference with Pro Q is that you can get a much tighter Q to really kind of cut the exact bit out, really surgically. And I usually cut, same as before, as I said before, I usually cut down to about 3, -3. There it is. And same as before with the high end as well. Next up, Inflator, which I use quite a lot on. I use on loads of stuff actually. It's really, really good. Just kind of like making the sound slightly bigger without pushing the volume too much. I use it on loads of stuff. Not so much on the masters, and I don't push it so much on the master as I would on maybe like a lead or a bass or something like that. So I'll just show you what happens as I bring the effect up. What I tend to do is just bring it up to when it starts kicking in and then leave it there. So you can hear it starting to have an effect around there. Curve, that kind of brings it, gives the track more high end, and that gives it more warmth. I don't tend to touch that on the master. I tend to just leave it because I've already kind of balanced everything out in the mix, in theory anyway. Also, if you smash that too much, by the time you've added the compressor and the limiter, you're just gonna have, it's gonna be like really fierce and really harsh. So less is more when mastering, definitely. Next up is Imager, which I really like, and there's quite a few good presets on here actually. So spacious high end, it's multi-band as well, so it's split into low, mid, mids, and then high. Essentially what this is doing is it's just giving you stereo width in that high frequency there, and then a little bit in band 3 there. Take out anything there. Another thing as well, which you can also do to clean your mix, is go back to this, is use the mid side on Pro Q2 to cut out any stereo in the low end. You might be able to hear the difference of that if you're on headphones. You might not be able to. If you're on speakers, you might be able to hear the difference. So yeah, that's basically doing what Utility does, maybe slightly cleaner and more accurate though. Next up, compression, and I don't really like using multi-band compressors on the master because I find like where you've got the 4 different bands, it can kind of unbalance things a little bit. So I tend to just use one like kind of glue compressor, as I did in the using the Ableton ones here. I just use one single band compressor. I find that like works much better. You get a much kind of softer compression, and also where I've compressed everything down the line in the mix, I don't want to then smash the master too much either, especially with a limiter on as well. So let's do this one. Okay, so that's definitely getting there. Let's try it, play it with the effects off and on. So you can hear the difference. It's slightly more high end. The low end is slightly tighter because we've taken the stereo out, and it's a little bit louder and more compressed. So final stage is compression. And with Pro L, I really like this. There's a few good compressors around. The Oxford one, same makers as this, is a really good compressor, and also this one as well. There's a couple of good settings on there as well. I'll show you guys. I tend to go for like the kind of ones that make the track sound tight from the outset. So those 2 rock ones have a really good feel to them before I've even done any gain. So potentially loud as fuck is that one. And as you can see there, when I let it play with the effects change for the premium plugins, it has hit the 5 LUFS. That's it without, so you can see the difference without. So using the 2 different ones, let's compare them. So we'll see what they sound like with the Ableton Master. That's not as loud, but it does sound quite clean, and it's fine to use in a club if you were just doing like mastering a track to play that evening. So originally I added a little bit more high end, but once all the other effects have been added, that's then come out a little bit too much. So I've eased that off now slightly. There we go. So that's not a perfect master, and I probably spend a bit more time on it. I've already mastered the track anyway for release, but I just wanted to show you kind of how I would do it if I'd finished the tune, I wanted to play it in a club that night. And for you guys that don't really know anything about mastering as well, I just wanted to show you like a real basic chain of how you could kind of get cracking really and like start learning some stuff on mastering. As I said in the intro, the most important thing is mix downs. Like, the more time you spend on getting a good, clean mix down, the less you'll have to do when you master. You may not even need to do these notches here, and you'll just get the track kind of naturally loud without having to like smash limiters, or, you know, if you're having to really push things too much and you're squashing your master, you need to go back and try and sort of work on your mix downs a little bit. I may do a tutorial on mix down. I'm just not sure how to approach it because it's a pretty big area. But yeah, so if you guys have got any questions on mastering, or you want to know anything else, I can also recommend various FL plugins which you could use to help you master as well if you're on FL Studio. So yeah, give me a shout in the comments or message me on Facebook or wherever. I always answer, always listen to music as well. Thank you for listening, and also thank you for the support with the tutorial series as well. I really appreciate it, and happy producing. See you soon.